It's not exactly been the most fortuitous of months for Walsall. Results on the pitch have been grim, and as of the performances, and off the pitch, things just aren't quite pleasant either, are they at the moment, Harley?
No, not really. It's a bit of a kind of a down patch at the moment. I think that we've ridden quite high this season, and there's been a lot of optimism, and we're starting to we've kind of tailed off and crashing a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that when you're losing, you start to look inwards and you start to pick apart all the bad things about the club. And I think the results are kind of affecting everything else at the moment.
I mean, one win in the month, which came against Gillingham, um, defeats to high flying Stevenage, um, and Barrow. But then the rest, it's the same old thing, isn't it? It's draws. Oh, and that's completely discounting the truly dreadful game against Wimbledon, which was a loss. But it just, yeah, it kind of feels like everyone's already on their holidays a little bit. I think that's the only way
Yeah,
I really can describe it.
yeah, I think we've hit a point where we know we can't make playoffs, and we also kind of know that we're not going to get relegated. And I think the players, I don't think they've given up necessarily, but I don't think they're really fighting for anything. And they really should be, because at the very least, they should be fighting for their contracts. Because I completely believe Flynn when he says that they are playing for their futures. So I think, yeah, I think I agree with you that I think a lot of players have taken a step back and maybe aren't pushing themselves as hard as they could, or they only get injured, or they just, yeah, they don't care as much because they know they've got a contract for next season, or they can find somewhere else if worse comes to worse. I feel like there's a bit of kind of complacency set in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might have been at the weekend, and we're 20 points off second, but we're 21 points from bottom, which
Yeah,
is pretty much as
as
mid-table
mid-table
as you
as you
can
can
get.
get.
But given the last few years, would a finish of I think 13th at the moment, let's dream big and say that we finish sort of anywhere between 11th and 13th. Is that necessarily a terrible finish, or is it more a case of we're drawing a lot of games which just one or two more victories, especially considering the late goals that we've conceded? This is obviously throughout the season, and it could have been a different story.
Yeah, I think when we look back to the start of the season, a lot of kind of the trends when talking about what we wanted out of a season were solid mid-table finish, maybe a bit of a cup run. I feel like we've done a cup run. We did as well as we could. I think that was excellent for our season. And we are mid-table, and we're about as mid-table as you can get, as you literally just that stat completely proves it. I think that possibly because of the potential we know it knows there and that great run of form we went on, I think we kind of know that there's more to come, and we could have pushed for playoffs. So I think it's disappointment, but I think it's recency bias is why we're upset rather than if you look at it as a whole, this is kind of what we asked for.
Yeah, I mean, I still personally stand by the "we are tough to beat" line. Okay, the last couple of weeks have shown that that's maybe not as much as the case, but we've lost 11 games all season. There's only there's only I think we're level in terms of defeats with Mansfield in eighth, but the only teams that have lost fewer games than us are all in the playoffs
Yeah.
or automatics. It's that draws column that I think it feels like it's the same thing that we've always been saying, that really, if we'd have just been able to sort our attack a little bit better
Mm.
and sort our attack out and maybe create a little bit more, that that's definitely where the issue lies. Because despite obviously defeats to Stevenage and Wimbledon, where it was conceding and losing by 2+ goals, that's actually a bit of an anomaly. Like if we're losing,
Yeah,
it's only by a goal, whereas obviously those two results are different.
yeah. I think that it's not been bad, but it's not been good either. And I think that's the kind of the issue. If we'd have turned, I don't know, half of those draws, maybe that's a bit much. Maybe like kind of
I'd
maybe
say
a
even a
third, something like
quarter,
that.
not even
We'd
that. I
be
think a quarter of them. I mean,
we'd
17
be
games.
right in the conversation.
Yeah, 17 games. If you win four more there, that's 8 points more, and you're on
Yeah,
58 points level with Barrow. It's a yes. It's a lot of ifs and buts, but I'd say
but
we've
that's not impossible. That was not. It's not an impossible thing that we definitely could have done that. 17 of those draws, we should be winning at least five or six of them. Definitely, I think. Yeah,
and,
at,
and to
at least
counter
five or six.
and to counter that, I'd say we probably look like we could have lost a couple of those.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean,
I mean, if we kind of put that in, yeah, we probably I'd say we should be nearly 10 points better off than what we actually are because of those draws.
so this kind of brings the question now of, is Flynn the right man for the job? And there's been a lot of talk of Flynn in, Flynn out. We both sort of spoke about this in the last video. We're both willing to give him time. I, I don't really know what the alternative is, because there was a tweet that was circulated recently, and it showed the manager breakdown
Yeah, I
um,
saw that. Yeah,
since obviously Dean Smith had gone, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't make for good reading, and I don't really know what to do. I do still stand by the fact that yes, he's had two transfer windows. We know from the fans forum the Danny Johnson situation. Really, from a business point of view, and we'll get onto finances later. He only wanted a 6 month deal.
yeah,
There's a lot of ifs and buts. If he'd have kept the form going, would it, even if he had, would it have been enough to push us into the playoffs? We obviously won't know that and won't ever be able to know that. But he's only had one real big, well, one summer to do the rebuild, which is when the bulk of
yeah,
transfers take place. Surely he's owed another one at least.
yeah. I think it comes down to kind of you've got two camps at the moment. You've got the Dean Smithers and the not Dean Smithers. I kind of and what I mean by
How
that
you
is
thought up that name? That's just so out there. That creativity.
yeah, I know. So the Dean Smithers are the people who go, well, Dean Smith, it took him a while to figure out what he was doing, and when he eventually did, he almost took us to the championship. And then you got the people who just think that that's way too long and they want immediate success. And they think that, you shouldn't take 3 4 years to get to that position. So I mean, both are, I think, are valid, because both have been done.
I think
Well, I
it's.
mean,
I think the. Sorry to just cut in, but I think
go in, John. Yeah,
it's it's worth it's worth committing if there's signs of improvement. And I think this
yeah,
is the thing. If we look back 12 months ago, when I know Flynn, obviously it's been over 12 months now, but roughly speaking, a year on, we aren't we're much safer in the table, way safer in the table.
yeah,
Like you'd said, we'd had a bit of a cup run. We are more difficult to beat. We're not shipping goals. Scoring's still a problem. He's kind of ticked off a couple of the problem areas
yeah,
that, for me, as long as there's still those signs of improvement, you have to stick with the manager.
yeah. And I think that this is probably the strongest squad we've had for a long time, probably even back into the League One days. And the reason I think that is because there's a good core there.
Yeah,
You look at if we go back to the kind of Daryl Clark when he left, we let go of Zach Jules and Adebayo, and the core wasn't really there anymore. We were being carried by a few characters, and it kind of the ship sank. Whereas we've let go of two massive players, and the ship, although it's taking some water on, it's not sinking, and it feels like there is a solid base there. Where I don't think we need to overhaul the squad completely in the summer, and I think that's a good thing because I think if we can build on what we've got a solid foundation. We've got maybe what 6, 7 players who absolutely will be starting next season. That's a good place to be going into the summer where we can recruit a little bit more carefully. We don't need to bring in 20 heads this time. We can bring in
yeah,
maybe 10, 15 maybe push and be a bit more concise with our transfers. And Flynn knows more so what he wants from his team now because he's put together a group of players and gone, I hope this works. Because when you're doing a project, that's kind of what every single manager does. And now you know exactly what your players can do. You know what you need from new players, if that makes
yeah. I
sense.
think I feel like it's going to be more of a targeted recruitment, whereas
Yeah.
it was bodies through the door last summer. Um, what I'd sorry, that's my what's if my laptop pinging off? I'll close that so we don't get. Um, what I do think, yeah, like I was saying, sorry, is that it will be more focused and targeted recruitment. I think obviously it's going to be if the players we offer contracts to
Mm.
stay, and that's something that we will obviously discuss closer to the end of the season,
Mm.
and obviously doing plans to do a kind of post-season special about the players that we'd keep and release, obviously in the gap between the end of the season and the list. But what I think is what I'd like to see now in the gap between in the what 7 games, 6 games that we've got left, six I
Mhm.
believe,
Something like that.
seven games is I think Connor Wilkinson looks like he's slowly getting
Yeah.
like more match fit, and I also think Joe Riley looks a very good player,
Yeah.
and I think we now need to focus, even if it's a bit at the detriment of performances, focus on the players that are here next season.
Yeah.
I think for me, we've got to be now playing Jamil Matt over Matty Stevens. We've
Yeah.
got to try and keep Wilkinson in the starting lineup as well as Riley as much as possible.
Hmm.
Um, and in midfield as well, I think obviously Kinsella's been hit and miss with injury.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's what we need to, in my opinion,
Yeah.
do.
I agree.
So not play the loanees as much.
Yeah.
I think having having the likes of Mont at centre back or McKenty instead of Joe Lowe
Yeah.
is what we need to be doing more of instead of the loanees. Because if they're not here next season, what's it achieving? Like you
Yeah.
said, we're not going up, we're not going down. Why fill the matchday squad full of loanees?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's why I'd advocate for Flynn staying is because if we let him stay, then it's consistency and it's continuity. If we get someone else in, yeah, we'll keep those. We might keep a lot of those players, but it's going to be a big rearrange of the squad, and it's going to feel like a very different squad, and it's almost going to be like resetting again. Whereas I think that we've tried resetting, we've tried changing the squad completely, we've tried keeping some of the same players. It hasn't worked. Just try a bit of continuity because he's not a bad manager. We know that, and we've not had a bad season. We're in a bit of a bad run again, and it looks pretty poor. But when you look at the season as a whole, it's not been a bad season. So I
Yeah,
think that that continuity into next season. I think a lot of other clubs will be trying to do the same thing, just keeping the same man and keeping the team that you know can perform and just refining it.
Well, I mean, and this is the thing, it kind of reflects his time at Newport. Stabilize the ship when you first come in, push on, but don't really pull up any trees. And then it was the kind of the progress came from there. And I
Yeah,
think, you know, I'd ideally like to, I mean, just looking at the table again, um, I think Sutton 7 points ahead in 10th is a big reach, but Swindon and Doncaster are only a point ahead of us.
yeah,
You know, finishing 11th or 12th, it's got to be an aim to get just creep into that top half.
yeah.
Um, but talking of the consistency, you will not be surprised. I was delighted at the news that Isaac Hutchinson has signed a 2 year extension. Now we looked obviously at the last video or a couple of videos ago of who we'd keep or release, and we both said Hutchinson. We did know that, or it was known that there was an option on the contract. I wouldn't assume that that would be a 2 year option. I'd assume it would be a 1 year. So
Yeah.
I feel like they've negotiated a new deal. But how how did you receive the news that he's with us for another 2 seasons?
I think it's great news. And I think that in a kind of a bad spell that we're in, he's been a real bright spark. And I think he's really flourished as the season's gone on because he did kind of initially struggle quite a bit. And he was kind of in and out of the team because he wasn't quite at it. And he's got better and better and better. And I think when we're talking about we want, well, I want continuity, he's one of those core players that you'd want in the team. I mean, you look at the likes of him, Daniels, Riley, even someone like kind of Connor Wilkinson, like Liam Gordon, those kind of core players, that's a good core to be going into next season with. And with deals on the table for the likes of Kinsella, Month, and Maddox, they're more core players that we can potentially sign up. That's a good basis to work from. So I'm really happy with that news.
In a squad that's struggling to score and create, Hutchinson, who scored 7 and assisted 7 in the league, which just done some fast maths, is 35% of our goals in the league he has contributed to. Can't afford to let that go,
No,
considering the
no.
lack of goals. And we, yes, we need more creativity, but it's not to replace Hutchinson with someone that might create a little more. It's the players around him.
Yeah,
So no, I was very happy, and I think 2 years is great because if he has another good season and we don't go up, there might be a bit of resale value on there as well,
yeah,
which is very optimistic thinking.
yeah.
But on that, the the scoring chance doesn't take well, it's just pretty grim to look at. Obviously, we'll discount Danny Johnson, who's way up top. Hutchinson is our leading scorer currently at the club in the league with 7. Then Tom Knowles on 4.
Yeah,
Then it's
yeah. I think
Williams on 3, and then
yeah,
it's a handful of players on 2 and a few on 1.
yeah.
That's not great.
No, I think what that comes down to is that we've got a lot of attackers and we've kind of struggled to find we've had some bad luck, definitely. I think that Tom Knowles, you'd like to see him at striker, but he's had to fill in at right wing back a lot. So I feel like it's harsh criticism on him.
He does have 5 assists to his name as well,
Yeah,
Knowles.
exactly. Yeah. So you look at that, that's what 9 goal contributions. That's not terrible from striker slash right wing back. He's done a lot of jobs this season. Jamil Matt's come in and he's been injured pretty much from the get go. Connor Wilkinson's been injured like all season, so you wouldn't expect many goals from them. Andy Williams has pretty much made cameo appearances, so you'd expect maybe a couple more goals from him, but really not that many more. maybe Matty Stevens could be scoring a few more. I think that's probably the only person I say who needs to bag more goals.
And
But
Douglas James Taylor, I feel, could have chipped in with a couple more.
he could have got a few more goals. But I think that maybe his role isn't so much a kind of he's there to help someone else score the goals. Is the kind of whenever I watch him play, I think that he's the runner. He's the one who kind of offer himself out to give someone a better chance of scoring. I think that I wouldn't say it's necessary. I'd say it's a bit harsh in saying that he'd score a lot more goals, but definitely a few more
Not
from
not a
him.
lot more, but with only two
Yeah,
goals and one assist, I think
yeah. You'd
it's
expect him to hit kind of over five.
yeah. And but I think
Yeah,
that it's okay for him not to have if others were picking up the slack. But like you
yeah,
said, Andy Williams, I mean, looking, there's actually a lot of strikers on the list. Yes, we know about Wilkinson. Timmy Abraham, I mean, he played 10 games for us, which is a crazy thought. But then there's
yeah.
obviously Stevens, James Taylor, Williams, like Johnson's on the list. We've got through a lot of strikers this season,
Mm,
and that, like Matt's not on the list as well. So
yeah,
it's yeah,
yeah.
that's
It's a bit of a tricky one because I feel like we've had to turn to the people who shouldn't necessarily be bagging the goals to kind of see us through games like your James Taylors and your Andy Williams is who are really James Taylor's there to kind of see what he can offer. He's a loanee. What could he bring to the side? Maybe he can fill in a little bit. Andy Williams, he's there. He's a kind of he's a figurehead of the squad. He's there to kind of lead and offer some experience, but you don't really want to play him that much. And I feel that's kind of both in the same boat where you don't necessarily want them starting. And I feel like they've been chucked into a situation where they've had to.
yeah.
I think,
Or we're
mm,
chasing goals, and they've been brought on to try and
yeah,
change things. But
yeah,
right, moving on. Money, 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 money. Now,
mm,
obviously, the season ticket prices have shot up, as have the match day prices and the standard. Actually, I don't think we've had the match day pricing, the standard season ticket rate.
yeah,
Match day experience is now getting more expensive with things like the price of a pint going over £5, which is
yeah.
a lot of money. Um,
Mm,
I mean, you pay that here in London. Um,
mm.
but it kind of counters what the facts and figures are telling us. So obviously we spoke last time about Walsall making a 742,000 loss, which a lot of fans, ourselves included, were pretty gutted at because we'd always been a club that had churned a profit.
Mm.
But I want to read out a few of the clubs that are around us, slightly above, just to give you an idea of losses. So Walsall lost 742,000. Bear in mind this is last season. In the National League, Stockport lost 4.8 million. In our league, Salford lost 2.9 mil, Orient lost 2.3 mil, Colchester lost 2 mil, which has now racked up they're in millions, millions, millions that they owe to the owners. In the league above, Oxford lost 4 million, Wickham lost 2.5 million. Suddenly makes the 742,000 not as bad a loss.
Yeah. I mean, me and you were talking about this before we started recording, and I brought up something that Lee Pomlet said that he one of the main reasons he wanted to get out of League Two was because it's not a financially viable league. If no one makes money in League Two, it just doesn't happen because there's just not enough money in this league. Everybody's going to lose. We've been through COVID, which is a very tough time, and we're starting to see the effects of COVID. Because again, like Pomlet said, you wouldn't see the effects of COVID for 2 or 3 years, and we are 2 or 3 years down the line now, and we are starting to see the clubs that owe money really owe money, and it may look bad 700k, but it's all about perspective, and I think that we are still a well-run club. Everyone else is losing a lot more money than us. We are still that well-run club that everybody knows. It's all about shifting perspectives.
Yeah, and I also think A promotion to League One is obviously there's more TV money available from the EFL deal with Sky. I believe it's double what League Two clubs get.
Yeah.
It might not be, that might be wrong, but it's definitely certainly more. But also looking at some of the away attendances in League Two, I mean, that's one of the only saving graces with the likes of Wrexham and Notts County looking like they could be the two coming up from the National League. Obviously, one would have to go through the playoffs. They'd at least fill the away end. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's also killing the club, well, not killing the club off, but hampering the club with these losses. You look at some of the clubs in League One and they'd be selling at least 1,000 away tickets. And you only need 5 or 6 of those over the course of the season, and it makes a big difference. The likes of Salford and Harrogate and Hartlepool, who bring a handful of supporters, it's not helpful for the club. And it also doesn't help in terms of having the funds available for promotion. It's that spiral.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the prices across the board have kind of gone up, and it's definitely kind of a state to good display the state of current affairs when we can see everything's just rising and rising and rising. But I don't think we're the only club to do that. I think it is kind of an issue everywhere, and it's something that kind of we need to somehow get a hold of. I mean, if the pints are, I haven't been down to the best for a month or so I haven't seen the new prices yet. But if say the pints are over £5, it does beg the question: will the kind of how long will that be in place for? Is that a change that we can somehow negotiate in a future fans forum, or are they going to try and offset it maybe with the Saddlers Club if they could kind of do cheaper drinks in there to get more use out of that facility? Then that's another avenue. But I think it's going to be looking at the club needs to make as much money as they can, and we need to look at ways of making it affordable for ourselves. And there needs to be some kind of communication between club and fans to see how we can do that best.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. It was picked up on the almost the price increase within the stadium happened the day after the fans forum,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't look good. I don't think that
No, no.
which yeah, that it's kind of a shame that almost there wasn't a. I know that Ben Boycott did say that almost that almost the club can't afford to pick up the cost increase, so they're having to pass it
Yeah.
on to the customer, which everyone knows. Like it's
Yeah.
not it's not Walsall that are putting up these prices. It's a knock-on effect,
Yeah.
but still, it does leave a bit of a sour taste when there's a fans forum price of just everything is brought up, and then there's no kind of as it's. And I think it's potentially because it was a new tax year that prices adjusted. It makes it. I don't fully know, but you kind of think you've had like an ample opportunity to raise it with the fans.
Yeah.
You could have you could have done the right thing there.
Yeah. Yeah. That does leave a bit of a kind of a sour taste in the mouth, definitely. And I think once again, maybe because I think it happens a lot, but maybe over the last few years, it kind of it's the club trying to sneak one past you. Just say, "Oh, just going to change this thing without," and hope you don't notice. When it comes to money, everybody notices. Like there are no idiots when it comes to money. Like if something
Yeah,
costs more, people will notice.
yeah. If you go one week and it's £4 and it suddenly goes up to £5, you're going to notice.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, that's. I think that kind of draws us to a close. It's sort of been, say, three of the biggest topics in the last month. Um, unless you have any final bits of business you want to discuss.
Don't think there's any more business to discuss. I think we've covered all the kind of the key points of the month, and I think we're just looking forward to a successful April, hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot. Right at the start, we didn't do our How's Harley at University check-in.
Oh yeah,
And I know that people have probably switched off by now because they've been waiting to find out.
yeah, yeah. No, you banged on. I did forget about that. Harley at University, he's doing okay. He's getting to kind of crunch time now. There's a lot of big assignments coming up. I've got some big essays and
Ooh.
exams to do. I've got 2,000 word essay on something to do with law. I've got
Ooh,
an NCTJ
lovely.
exam to do, a law exam. And I've got some kind of broadcast bits and pieces. I've got to go and get my own interview and stuff like that. So I've got a lot of kind of irons in the fire. But Harley's doing okay. He's coping. He's just trying to plan it all out now and kind of
Great.
get through it.
Great. Well, we all look forward to hearing how your media law went. Is it your court reporting or your media law?
So I've got it is law and ethics module, and then I've got an NCTJ exam on that. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
here's a fact for you. Here's a nice
go
little
on.
tidbit to make yourself feel better. So when I did my NCTJs, passed media law and court reporting, both first time, both very happy with my mark. I got a high
Yeah,
2-1 in one and a low first in the other, which was I was
yeah,
very happy with.
yeah.
And the flip side of that is on the same day that I sat and passed my media law exam, I failed my 10 question multiple choice ethics test.
Oh,
I then failed it again. I was the only person who had to do it a third time.
mm,
Yep,
yeah. That says a
that
lot.
sucks.
You,
Yeah, it does say a
yeah,
lot. It does say a
yeah.
lot about my ethical standpoint. And do you know why? Because I sat down and we analysed the answers afterwards. It's because I wasn't unethical. It was just that sometimes I was picking the safer option. So
Willing to risk it.
yeah, and I'm just one of those guys. I just
Yeah,
like to be nice.
yeah. Well, can't take that away from you.
No, no.
No.
And other business, um, obviously everyone had the argument with Nathan Judah on Twitter recently, um, to which he opened up the floor to One Pod Beyond for them to discuss it with him and to email him if they wanted to talk about his comments and the situation regarding the Express and Star Walser reporter. So I emailed him. I'm yet to hear back, everybody. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
who
Well,
knows?
isn't that something?
I'm not holding my breath.
No. I doubt he watches this, so I wouldn't expect it to happen anytime
No,
soon.
no.
Right.
I mean, no. He's too busy writing lovely tweets about budding reporters for full-time
Yeah,
jobs.
yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, I think making our opinions very clear. I look forward to speaking to you hopefully sooner than we normally do.
Potentially. I mean, a lot of balls in the air, but we'll see.
So you've used is it irons in the fire and you've now
Yeah,
used
Iron's
balls in the air. I'm trying to think what your next one's gonna be.
you'll just have to find out next time you see me.
Brilliant.